Thank you so much, sir. Now, I take great privilege to introduce our honorable speaker, Dr. Rajamahendran, sir. Sir holds MBBS, MS, and MCH in surgical gastro. He holds MRCS from Edinburgh, FMAS, and Diploma in laparoscopy. Sir is the director of RRM Gastro Super Specialty Hospital. He is a consultant GI and hepatobiliary pancreatic surgeon. He is a specialist in GI and HBP oncosurgery and an advanced laparoscopic surgeon. He is also the director of RRM's next PG Super Specialty Medical Coaching Institute and has authored more than 10 books. Personally, I'm a very, very huge fan of Sir and his books. I also follow him in social media platforms. Sir is also very humble despite all his tremendous achievements, and that's what makes him unique. With this short intro, I request Dr. Rajamahendran, sir, to take over the session.
Thank you, Venkat. Thank you, Dr. Venkat. Thank you so much for the introduction. So shall we start share screening?
Yes, sir. And before that, if our audience are having any questions during the session, they can leave it in the chat box. We will address it at the end, sir.
Cholecystectomy. So it is a topic essential for final MBBS students, for PG aspirants, as well as for practicing surgeons. For all of us, this is a very important topic. So I'm going to give in and out about this topic in detail. So any doubts you have, you can always post it in the chat box. We will be replying all those doubts at the end of the session. So before going to the session, let us discuss a brief anatomy of the gallbladder and the surrounding areas. Okay. So now I'm going to show you the anatomy of gallbladder and the surrounding things. So this is a liver. So you can see this is right hepatic duct. This is left hepatic duct. This is common hepatic duct. And it enters along with the main duct of pancreas known as Wirsung duct, major duct of Wirsung. It opens into the ampulla. This is a very important anatomy, basic anatomy. So right duct, left duct joined to form the common hepatic duct. So common hepatic duct is joined by cystic duct. This is a cystic duct and this is gallbladder. And it now forms common bile duct. So in an ultrasound, when you do an ultrasound for an adult patient, the normal diameter of common bile duct is 6 millimeter. This is a normal diameter of common bile duct. And the common bile duct is dilated. You should think of there is some obstruction in the distal end. So if the common bile duct is dilated in an ultrasound, you must always think of one thing, that is there is some obstruction in the distal part of the bile duct that is causing this common bile duct dilatation. So if you see, there is one another cause. Without any obstruction, the common bile duct can be dilated. Can you tell me what is it? This is one of the great confusion among surgeons when you are doing routine investigation. We get a finding known as a CBD of 14 millimeter. There is no stone, no stricture, no malignancy in the bile duct. We'll get a picture like this. And many times some radiologists will not be able to tell what is the exact diagnosis. And as a surgeon, you should know there is one disease known as choledochal cyst. Choledochal cyst is an abnormal dilatation of bile duct without any obstruction. There may not be a proper obstruction. It is a congenital anomaly. It is a congenital problem. It has been present from the childhood. The bile duct will be dilated without any obstruction. So you should always have this in your mind. So many times as general surgeons, even when I was doing general surgery, I doesn't have an idea about this choledochal cyst. And choledochal cyst is one of the important causes of non-obstructive dilatation of bile duct. So always have this in your mind. So you should always have this rare diagnosis in your mind. So, but anyhow, in practice, the common bile duct diameter is only 6 millimeters. If it is more than 6 millimeter, it should alert you that there is some pathology in the bile duct, and you should never go for a cholecystectomy directly without further evaluation. So now, for final MBBS level, there is a very important anatomy here at this focus. At this point, there is a very important anatomy you should not forget. All of you know there is a triangle here. There is a confusion in this triangle anatomy. So this is a common hepatic artery coming. This is a common hepatic artery coming from celiac trunk. I'm not drawing the other anatomy. This is a common hepatic artery coming from celiac trunk. And this is gastroduodenal artery. This is right gastric artery. So these are the branches from common hepatic artery. After that, it becomes proper hepatic artery. It now divides into right hepatic artery and left hepatic artery, supplying the two lobes of liver. These are the two right and left hepatic arteries supplying the two lobes of liver. And from the right hepatic artery, you get a branch that is cystic artery. This is a cystic artery supplying the gallbladder from the right hepatic artery. So please don't forget, this is a triangle formed here now. This triangle now, it's formed, the yellow color picture I've made here is formed by cystic duct, common hepatic duct, and cystic artery. This triangle, cystic duct, this is a cystic duct, common hepatic duct, and cystic artery. This triangle is known as Kellogg's triangle. So many times the students are being confused by the various concepts in various books. Actually, this is the correct definition of Kellogg's triangle boundaries. So the correct boundary of Kellogg's triangle is cystic artery. So I used to tell as 3C: cystic artery, common hepatic duct, and the common hepatic duct and cystic duct. Okay, this is an actual triangle, Kellogg's triangle. So what you read in many books is this triangle. What is this triangle? Actually, this is a full triangle. What is this triangle? So this is a triangle. We call it as actually hepatocystic triangle. Okay, please don't get confused with this hepatocystic triangle. So now I am drawing the hepatocystic triangle. This is bounded by these parts. What are the parts bounding the hepatocystic triangle? It's a very common question for PG entrance exam also. You will get confused between the hepatocystic triangle and Kellogg's triangle boundary. There is nothing to get confused because hepatocystic, that itself says there is a boundary by liver. Hepato means this is a liver. Liver is one boundary, inferior surface of liver one boundary. Gallbladder with cystic duct is another boundary. This is a gallbladder with cystic duct is another boundary. Okay, please don't forget. Gallbladder with cystic duct is another boundary. Another boundary is common hepatic duct. So this is a boundary of hepatocystic triangle. There should be no confusion for final years and for PG aspirants related to this triangle. So Kellogg's triangle is a small triangle within the hepatocystic triangle. Kellogg's triangle is a small triangle within the hepatocystic triangle. No confusion in this. As laparoscopic surgeons, we are more concerned only about this Kellogg's triangle. We are least bothered about the hepatocystic triangle. We are very much worried about the Kellogg's triangle. Without defining a Kellogg's triangle, if you try to do laparoscopic cholecystectomy, you are going to cause more damage to the patient. So without Kellogg's triangle anatomy, I will never put a clip or never put a scissor anywhere. So I should have a clear anatomy of Kellogg's triangle. I'm drawing the Kellogg's triangle separately here. So Kellogg's triangle, this anatomy I should have before doing a cutting or clipping during surgery. The number one, cystic duct. This anatomy should be there. Cystic duct is as a one boundary, and cystic artery should be coming to the gallbladder as another boundary, and common hepatic duct as another boundary. So this is a anatomy I should have. In this triangle, there will be one node. I hope you know the name of the node. This node is known as Kellogg's node of Lund. So Kellogg's node of Lund. So this is a node inside the Kellogg's triangle. So this is the anatomy I should have clearly before putting a clip or cutting anything. Because please remember, many surgeons lose their practice by having some problem happening in this triangle. They do some damage in this triangle and the patient is going to be handicapped. In fact, we say it as handicapped for lifelong because of many complications that can happen. That is what we are going to discuss in this chapter. So Kellogg's triangle, to know, to go into this topic, you should know clear anatomy of this Kellogg's triangle. And while I am seeing this triangle, there is a view I should see from inferior. If this is a gallbladder, I will see with the camera from inferiorly. That view is known as critical view of Strasberg. This is a definite MCQ for PG aspirants. What is critical view of Strasberg? During laparoscopic cholecystectomy, with a 30-degree camera, please remember, with a 30-degree camera, you cannot see this critical view of Strasberg with a 0-degree camera. You can do it only with a 30-degree camera. From posterior to gallbladder, when I see from behind, I will see the picture like this. So I will see a picture like this. This is a cystic duct will be seen like this. And from posteriorly, I will see the cystic artery alone entering like this. So in a critical view of Strasberg, there should be only two structures should enter the gallbladder. That is known as critical view of Strasberg. So when I see by laparoscopy with a 30-degree camera, I should see only two structures that will enter the gallbladder. If there are more than two structures entering and you are trying to put a clip, you are in danger. Please remember, patient is not in danger. You are in danger. You are going to face a lot of medical legal issues and various problems. So if there is one duct and one artery is entering, there is nothing to worry. One artery and one duct is entering, you can put a clip in this duct, you can put a clip in this artery, and we can cut and remove the gallbladder. After that, there is no issue. So after that, there is no issue. So if there are more than two structures entering, let me tell you what happens. See, understand this picture. If there are more than 2 structures entering, I'm drawing the picture now of more than 2 structures entering the gallbladder. See the picture. If I am seeing a critical view of Strasberg like this, if there are more than 2 structures entering, 1 structure of tube, 2 structure of tube, and 3 is a structure. What do you think this is? If I'm trying to clamp, if I put a clamp here, and if I put a clip here, if I put a clip here, and if I put a clip here, and if I put a clip here, I am in danger now. What happened? What is actually the structure? Due to excessive traction, please remember, this is nothing but a common bile duct, just 6 millimeter common bile duct. There is no cystic duct. Sometimes there will be very small cystic duct, or cystic duct may be absent also. I'll show you the anomalies. The cystic duct may be absent also. Such condition, what happens? There will be no cystic duct, the junction will not be typically seen, and you will be clamping a CBD thinking it as a, please remember, you will be clamping a CBD thinking it as a cystic duct. So the most common error or the most common reason for bile duct injury is misperception. Please remember, this is a very important thing, especially in a laparoscopy. Misperception of CBD as cystic duct. Very, very, very dangerous. Misperception of CBD as cystic duct. So misperception of CBD as cystic duct is a very important problem. You should not forget. This is a very important thing you should never forget. So misperception of CBD as cystic duct is a very dangerous issue. Please don't forget this. So this is the reason for most of the bile duct injuries. This is the reason for most of the bile duct injuries. Why it is getting injured is there is a misperception of CBD as cystic duct. So this is very important anatomy. You should not forget. I'll show you why we should be very careful with this, because there are many surgeons getting into trouble because of clipping as a CBD or laterally injuring the CBD. There are many reasons for getting into trouble post-operatively. So laparoscopic cholecystectomy, you should be very careful. You should know all the anomalies. There are enormous anomalies around the gallbladder and cystic duct. You should be knowing them, and you should be playing very safely in a laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Let me show you some essential things you should not forget for your exams. So this is a picture showing you hepatocystic triangle and Kellogg's triangle. So we always very much, as a general surgeons, many times will be very much worried about the duct. But gastrointestinal surgeons, we will be more worried about more than the duct, because we will be very careful, we will not injure the CBD. But we will be more worried about this right hepatic artery, which may enter into the Kellogg's triangle. What is it known as? What is that anomaly known as? So this is a picture directly from Bailey and Love. You can see this is a normal triangle of Kellogg's. This is a normal triangle of Kellogg's. You can see the cystic artery entering into the gallbladder. In the second picture, you can see it looks like cystic artery. It may appear like cystic artery, but it is not cystic artery. It is a tortuous course of right hepatic artery. Very, very dangerous. Right hepatic artery is having a tortuous course inside and entering the liver like this. So it is right hepatic artery is entering like a tortuous course. That is known as Moynihan's hump or caterpillar's turns. So that is known as Moynihan's hump or caterpillar's turn. This is a very important anomaly. We again have a misperception. Again, the problem in laparoscopy, most of the injuries are due to misperception. I will think this is cystic artery and I will put a clip in the right hepatic artery. What will happen? If I put a clip in the right hepatic artery, very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. If I clip the right hepatic artery, what will happen? Will the liver go for necrosis? Not. Liver is not going to have a necrosis. So please remember, I will tell you now what happens when I put a clip in the right hepatic artery. That is not going to present now. Patient will go home. He will be having no trouble. He will go home because 80% of the blood flow to the liver is from portal vein. Even if I put a clip to the right hepatic artery, patient is not going to die now. He is not going to die now. There are many cases going up without realizing this. So this is a right hepatic artery. This is left hepatic artery. This is proper hepatic artery. This is a hepatic artery. So now why should I very much worry if I clip this right hepatic artery? I'm not cutting. I just clipped like this on two sides and I have cut the right hepatic artery. The right lobe will not go for necrosis or gangrene. Nothing will happen to the right lobe because the 80% of the blood flow to the right lobe of liver is from portal vein only. So therefore the liver will not get damaged. So if you cut the portal vein, liver will be gone for gangrene. But if you cut the right hepatic artery, there will be not much problem. But the problem is here. The problem starts here. This is a bile duct, common bile duct. Please remember, common bile duct gets its blood supply exclusively from right hepatic artery like this, a descending branch from above. And another branch is from, this is a gastroduodenal artery. This is gastroduodenal artery. There is a branch running like this from below upwards. So from gastroduodenal artery below and right hepatic artery above, there is branches running at lateral wall of the lateral and medial wall of the common hepatic duct. We have blood flow like this. So therefore, what will happen in days, as days goes on, they can develop stricture. They can develop bile duct stricture. That can develop a bile duct stricture in future. Many times the right hepatic artery injuries are missed during surgery, and many times patient comes to us after 2 years or 3 years with a bile duct stricture. So we will be thinking many times, as what we think is, we will be thinking that surgeon has done a laparoscopic cholecystectomy and he has done a bile duct clipping at the time of surgery. That is the reason for bile duct stricture. This is what many surgeons think, but it is not due to that. It is not due to that. It is because of a right hepatic artery which is being clipped without your own knowledge during the previous surgery is a reason for this bile duct stricture. So please don't forget, this is very important. Moynihan's hump. Moynihan's hump, you should be very careful while operating. I will show you one video of our patient had a Moynihan's hump during surgery. So this is my case. I'm operating this case. You can see I'm showing you an interesting sign here. What sign you are seeing here in this video? You are seeing here a picture like you see this. This is looking like a elephant head with the that elephant-like sign. This is known as Ganesha sign. Please remember, this Ganesha sign is coming means you are doing a perfect surgery. This sign is what we call it as Ganesha sign. So this looks like an elephant head, and this looks like an elephant's limb. So it looks like elephant limb, and you can see a Kellard's node here. And I'm opening it, the cystic artery entering here. This is a typical critical view of Strasberg. Now I am dissecting. No, at the time I'm seeing one abnormal artery here. I don't know whether you could note this. There you see, there is a dilated artery running like this here. This is a right hepatic artery running like this. It's a Moynihan's hump. We rarely encounter this type of anomalies. So Moynihan's hump, we should be very careful before clipping the cystic artery. So please remember, cystic artery or Moynihan's hump can cause a confusion. You should be very careful before clipping the cystic artery. If there is some bigger artery during surgery, think of Moynihan's hump. That is nothing but an abnormal tortuous course of right hepatic artery. So another important anatomy, as this is not important for MBBS students and PG aspirants, but this is a classical important line when you are doing practically laparoscopic cholecystectomy. The moment you put a port and you pull the gallbladder, push the gallbladder towards the fundus, you can see one sulcus here. This is a very, very important sulcus. This is the inferior most point. I should not go below this point. While I'm doing surgery, I should always stop my dissections, everything above. If I go below this point, I am dealing with the common hepatic duct, and this Ruvius sulcus is always in 90%. You can see a Ruvius sulcus during surgery. The Ruvius sulcus contains right side portal triad. So Ruvius sulcus contains right side portal triad, means that contains the right side hepatic duct, right side portal vein, even the right side hepatic artery. Right side important structures will be passing in this Ruvius sulcus. So our dissection, everything should be above this Ruvius sulcus. Many times what happens during laparoscopic surgery, we will not be knowing where is the inferior limit. We keep on dissecting, and we'll be going at this level inferiorly, and we may injure the common bile duct or even some vessels inside. So Ruvius sulcus is the inferior most dissection point. The inferior most dissection point as a laparoscopic surgeon, you should always remember is Ruvius sulcus. So this is very important for surgeons. This is a Ruvius sulcus, don't forget. So one another important thing which always causes problem is while we are doing surgery, laparoscopic cholecystectomy, we will be clamping the cystic duct. I'll show you as a diagram, you'll understand much better. So sometimes there is one anomaly, very commonly seen anomaly. So this is the liver. Now I have pakka clamped the cystic duct. I have clipped the cystic artery also very nicely. I'm sure there is no other injury. I am going towards the gallbladder now. I'm dissecting from below upwards. Like this, I'm dissecting and going from below upwards. This technique is what we call it as retrograde cholecystectomy, but Bailey has given wrongly this as antegrade cholecystectomy. Actually, we call it as retrograde. From inferior, we are going above. So retrograde cholecystectomy is being done. So I will clip from here and I will dissect, and I am going like this. As I am going like this, suddenly what happens? No, from somewhere from the liver, small duct which can enter the gallbladder like this. That when I cut this, immediately there will be bile coming out. Sometimes we can find out during surgery itself. Sometimes only we find out there is a bile coming out from the liver itself. That is a duct which is entering directly into the gallbladder like this. That duct is known as ducts of Luschka. It is seen in 10% patients. 10% patients, they will have ducts of Luschka, and it is also known as subvesical duct. It is also known as subvesical duct or ducts of Luschka, which will enter into the gallbladder like this. So if I note it, I can put a clip during surgery. If I note there is a subvesical duct, I can put a clip, but 90% of the time we cannot note it. And post-operatively, what happens? There will be a bile collection in this place. From the cyst of Luschka, there will be bile coming out and it will form a collection in the post-operative period. And this is known as bilioma. So bilioma is nothing but an injury to the bile duct resulting in bile collection in the right hypochondrium in the post-operative period. So this bilioma, the second most common cause, I'll tell you about the most common cause later while discussing bile duct injury. Second most common cause of bile duct leak is known as due to ducts of Luschka. Ducts of Luschka, what to do? If there is a leak from ducts of Luschka, nothing to worry, it will stop by itself. It will stop by itself. So ducts of Luschka can cause bile collection in the post-operative period, and you will be very much scared to see a bile collection always. As a surgeon, you'll be always stressed and we will get sleeplessness when we see bile in the right hepatic, subhepatic region in the post-operative period. So bilioma is a dangerous problem we always face. That is the only complication I will explain to the patient. So the only thing I will tell to the patient is there may be chances of bile duct injury and leak in the post-operative period, and that may need intervention. This is what we get in a concern for all lap cholecystectomy. And the second common cause is this bilioma. So we'll discuss about bile duct injury at the end of the session. So this is important thing. You should not forget ducts of Luschka or subvesical duct. Where is it connected? Means it is connected somewhere to the right side duct. I'll show you. It will be connected somewhere to the right side duct. Can you see? This ducts of Luschka goes from gallbladder to somewhere to the right side duct like this. It's a connection. It's an accessory duct. Okay. So you can see the various abnormalities in cystic duct. So many abnormalities are there. That is why my professors, when we are going for a training, they always tell us, don't try to dissect the cystic duct up to the junction. Cystic duct CBD junction, we will never dissect up to this place in laparoscopy. Cystic duct CBD junction, we never dissect. We dissect only the gallbladder with cystic duct and we put a clip there. We will not try to remove the entire cystic duct. See this patient, for example, see the D. If I try to dissect and go, I will have to go and put a clip here. It is a low insertion. If I try to dissect here, it inserts on the left side. I have to go to the left side. I can injure the CBD. In the C and C, you can see there is no duct at all. In F, you can see an accessory duct entering the cystic duct. So E, you can see a fused duct. So we have to clip at this place itself. We do not try to dissect them. So the point is, when we are putting a clip in the cystic duct, where should I put a clip? I will always try to put a clip close to the gallbladder. There is nothing wrong if you are going to leave a long length of cystic duct. Long length of cystic duct, if there is there, it is going to be remaining there. Ensure there is no stone inside the cystic duct. That's all. If there is stone inside the cystic duct, it will cause problem. If there is no stone in the cystic duct, you put a clip always at the point of gallbladder with cystic duct junction only. Always, you should never be over smart to dissect the cystic duct and go up to the cystic duct CBD junction. Is a wrong place to go and put a clip. Never ever do this. Always put a clip at cystic duct CBD junction, so cystic duct gallbladder junction only. That's enough. Ensure there is no stone in the cystic duct. You just try to milk and see there is any stone. If there is no stone, you can directly put a clip in this place and that will be enough. So this is very important, cystic duct anomalies. So this is okay. Cystic duct anomalies we will face and we will mostly cure them. But the problem is with the right duct anomalies. There is a classification known as Hume et al. Classification. If you see this classification, you will always have a scare to do a laparoscopic cholecystectomy. That much important classification. See the classification. The first one is only 62%. This is a normal case. Normally what we have, right duct, left duct. Right duct has right anterior sectoral and posterior sectoral. This is a normal anatomy seen only in 60% of the patients. So this is a cystic duct gallbladder. You are lucky if you are getting an anatomy like this, type A1 as per Hume et al. Classification. You are lucky even if you get a type A2. In A2 also, it is a trifurcation. They are all divided into three. They divide into three. See, left hepatic duct, right postsectoral, right antisectoral. There is no disturbance in this anatomy. You will cut. So in type A3 also nothing to worry, because right postsectoral duct is going to come from left hepatic duct. So nothing to disturb in Kellogg's triangle. You will be only concerned with the Kellogg's triangle. See, I will be concerned only with the Kellogg's triangle. In A1, A2, A3, there is no problem in Kellogg's triangle at all. So we are least bothered about the first three anomalies. But you come to the fourth one. See the fourth one. There is a problem happening. The fourth one, you can see the right postsectoral duct entering into the cystic duct. If I clip it here now, you see, if I clip this at this point of place, there will be more problem. Many times what we think is, when we see like duct like this and duct like this, we always think it is a CBD. We have put a clip in the CBD like that. We think actually it is not CBD. We have put a clip in the right posterior sectoral duct and in the cystic duct like this. So in the type A4, 5.8% is a dangerous anomaly. Dangerous anomaly. We think this is a cystic duct and we put a clip here. Or sometimes even during surgery, you'll think it is a CBD. So when there are more than one duct entering towards the gallbladder, you should be always very careful. Now you can understand why I'm telling you always to put a clip close to the gallbladder. Why I'm telling you always put the clip close to the gallbladder only. You're not doing surgery for a malignancy. Please remember, you're doing surgery only for a benign case. Always put clip at the cystic duct gallbladder junction. Nowhere you will get a problem. In whatever anomaly, you will never get a problem. If you're putting a clip in gallbladder cystic duct, there will be no problem at all. So even for A5, there is nothing to worry. So the concept, the basic concept is always put a clip at gallbladder cystic duct junction. Don't try to dissect too much of cystic duct. If you try to dissect too much of cystic duct, there may be anomalies getting injured. The cystic duct can go for various issues. So please remember this. Always put a clip at gallbladder cystic duct junction. So this is a video showing you the critical view of Strasberg. So in this video, you can see there is a critical view of Strasberg shown. So this is how I am seeing with a 30-degree camera from inferiorly. See, this is anterior view. The Lord Ganesha sign you are seeing now. So Lord Ganesha sign, this is a Lord Ganesha sign. You can see it looks like a elephant's. This anatomy is like a elephant-like appearance known as Lord Ganesha sign. When this sign is coming, when you are dissecting, you are in a safe plane. You are in a safe plane when this sign is coming. You can see a Lord Ganesha sign. And you can see this is a two structures only entering here. You can see only two structures. This is cystic artery. This is cystic duct. Only two structures are entering into the gallbladder. That is known as critical view of Strasberg. So please don't forget, this is another one dissection. Just I wanted to show you related to the how the dissection is being started. So we always, you can see the Ruvius sulcus here. This is a Ruvius sulcus. I should not go inferior to this. I am dissecting the peritoneum starting from the posterior. Usually we always start dissection posteriorly like this. So this is a posterior dissection you are seeing here. This technique, what we are doing is retrograde cholecystectomy technique. We always do like this. And after dissecting posterior, we come anteriorly. So what energy device to be used? There is no controversy. You can use energy device, whichever you want, but be sure you are not going to damage or touch the CBD at all. Should be dealing close to the gallbladder. Always stay close to the gallbladder. As long as you are going to stay close to the gallbladder, nothing to worry. So you can see in this picture, we are staying close to the gallbladder, and this is a cystic duct and the cystic artery. This is a cystic duct, which is going to be tied. We can put a knot with the material, or we can put a cystic duct clip. So nowadays we have only clips mostly. We don't put knots like this in practice. Mostly we have a clips to be made. So Lord Ganesha sign, please don't forget the anatomy. So there is a controversy always in a laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Bailey says wrongly. Please remember, Bailey has mentioned wrongly about the cholecystectomy. So retrograde cholecystectomy. Please remember, this is what we commonly do. 99% of the surgeons, we do retrograde. What do you do in retrograde? We dissect the Kellogg's triangle, put a clip in the cystic duct, put a clip in the cystic artery, and start removing the gallbladder towards the liver. The liver is attached with segments 4B and 5. The fundus of the gallbladder is attached with the segments 4B and 5. So I have to go from inferior to superior. This technique is commonly followed. That is retrograde cholecystectomy. 90% of surgeons will do this only. So 10% of them will still do antegrade cholecystectomy. What is this antegrade cholecystectomy mainly used for? Antegrade is also known as fundus first technique. I tell you, Bailey has mentioned wrongly as Antegrade as retrograde, they have changed the concept. So that is the problem with the PG aspirants. So PG aspirants, you have to follow Bailey and Love. So fundus first technique is actually antegrade technique. We come from above downwards. This technique is followed when you follow this antegrade or fundus first. In national board exams, you can get this question. Fundus first technique is followed when? When will you follow fundus first technique? Fundus first technique is followed when the Kellogg's triangle is not clear. I told you, first we will go to the Kellogg's triangle. If I could see a clear anatomy, I will continue with the Kellogg's triangle itself. If Kellogg's triangle is not clear, if Kellogg's anatomy is not clear, Kellogg's anatomy not clear, you have to go for fundus first or antegrade technique. Kellogg's anatomy is not clear, you should go for fundus first technique. This is what we practically follow. Why? Because if there is a frozen Kellogg's here, we will dissect it and we can even do a subtotal cholecystectomy at this point. We can even cut the gallbladder at this point. So subtotal cholecystectomy also can be done with antegrade technique. So antegrade technique or fundus first technique mainly used when the Kellogg's is not properly seen or it is frozen. This point you should not forget. When will you follow fundus first or antegrade technique? Okay, so you can see here I am doing one fundus first technique. So in this technique, you can see very difficult. It is actually easy to go with the retrograde technique because we can push the liver up. In antegrade technique, it will be a little difficult. We have to use some retractors to hold the liver and see the anatomy. You can see this Kellogg's is not clear. This Kellogg's triangle is not clear. So what we are doing here is we are coming from above downwards. This is a fundus first technique. So last we are coming to the Kellogg's triangle and cystic duct. Okay, this is fundus first technique. So this is a very classical problem which we may get during surgery. So this is nothing but Mirici syndrome. What is Mirici syndrome? So as surgeons, we'll be very much clear that the Kellogg's triangle should be absolutely fine. So what happens if sometimes when we are doing the surgery, sometimes we will be having so much of difficulty in dissecting the Kellogg's triangle. So we will be having so much of difficulty. I have got into one case like this without having proper knowledge about this anatomy and all very long back, some 10 years back. When I'm doing one laparoscopic cholecystectomy, at that time, there was a huge stone here like this. Huge stone like this. I was thinking during laparoscopic cholecystectomy, it is a stone in the some Hartmann's pouch, and I'm dissecting this. And as I completed the procedure, I could see bile, frank bile coming out from the. After completing this removal of stone, I could see there is a frank bile coming out from this area. I have dissected the gallbladder and I removed the gallbladder. Intraoperatively itself, I found out there is a bile coming out from the same place. I don't know at that time in 2010 and all, I was not much aware of this anatomy, so I don't know what to do. Then I could realize there is something happened in the bile duct. So then what I did is I kept a drain during the surgery. It's immediately at the post-op surgery, I kept a drain and I referred the patient to a gastrosurgeon at that time. So that was actually, I realized what is it after a few years. After when I joined MCH and when I started studying, then I realized that is nothing but that's a Mirici syndrome. In Mirici syndrome, the Kellogg's will be very much frozen. You cannot see the anatomy. There will be stone obstructing at the level of neck or cystic duct. Neck or cystic duct, there will be a huge stone obstructing that will be compressing the bile duct. That is a Mirici syndrome. Mirici syndrome can cause compression of bile duct, CBD, with a stone in the cystic duct and neck. So what should actually be done for this case is a case of Mirici syndrome. What I should have done is I should have, what is the latest treatment is now, surgeons now complete even with the laparoscopy, but ideally what is given in materials and books is to convert it to open cholecystectomy. We should go for an open cholecystectomy. What is given in Bloom-Gart, I'm telling you, we have to convert it into open cholecystectomy, remove the gallbladder, leave some amount of wall. This is a posterior wall, leave it there and remove the stone now. Remove the stone now. And what you should do is you must use this posterior wall itself to repair the bile duct there itself. With the posterior wall itself, you close the bile duct. So open cholecystectomy is done, and with the wall, part of gallbladder wall used to repair the CBD. Used to repair the CBD. This is a very complicated problem, Mirici syndrome. Mirici syndrome, you should not forget. Mirici syndrome is a nightmare for surgeons, laparoscopic surgeons. So this type of issues we are not encountering now. I'll tell you very simple. We are not encountering the issues of anomaly of cystic duct, anomaly of common hepatic duct, anomaly of Mersey syndrome. Nothing we are encountering in today's practice. The reason is very simple, because we never do laparoscopic cholecystectomy without having an MRCP picture. Please remember, just 4,500 rupees. It's not going to be a major expenditure on the patient. MRCP. Actually, as per protocol, as per books, it is not always needed. But if you start doing MRCP for all laparoscopic cholecystectomy, you have a roadmap. You know where is the cystic duct inserting, where is the gallbladder seen. So roadmap is obtained with the help of MRCP. I will request all surgeons. Please do MRCP before doing, even it is a simple cholecystectomy. You think it is a simple cholecystectomy also, please have MRCP and get a reconstructed image. Get a reconstructed image of MRCP. That is most important before going for a surgery. I'll show you. This image I'm going to show you is for final MBBS students, those who are attending the class here. You should not forget what is MRCP image. You should never forget what is MRCP image. There's a picture showing you an MRCP, clear-cut MRCP picture. So this is a picture of MRCP. So in this patient, if you see, you can see there is a picture showing you gallbladder. You can see where is the cystic duct going, and you can see in this picture there is a stone in the bile duct. Everything you can get in MRCP before entering into the field. Before entering into the field, you have a clear-cut anatomy of entire system. So I will tell you, MRCP should be made as a protocol before doing laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Just a simple expenditure, but definitely it is going to save the life of the surgeon, not the patient. It is going to save the life of surgeon. So I started taking MRCP for all patients before doing a laparoscopic cholecystectomy. In fact, I will even reduce my fees if the patient comes with the MRCP picture. So MRCP is going to save the life of the patient as well as the surgeon. So please advise MRCP before going for a laparoscopic simple cholecystectomy. For MCQ point of view, when will you advise MRCP? This is for PG aspirants. When will I advise indications of MRCP? Indications of MRCP in a protocol. As per protocol, when the patient is jaundiced, when a cholecystitis patient is jaundiced, you have to do MRCP to look for CBD stone. When the patient is not jaundiced, when the patient is having alkaline phosphatase elevated alkaline phosphatase is an indication of there is a stone or some obstruction. So when there is alkaline phosphatase elevated, I will do a MRCP. Number 2. Number 3, when the CBD is dilated more than 6 millimeters. When the CBD is more than 6 millimeters. So patient jaundiced or serum bilirubin is elevated, alkaline phosphatase is an elevated, CBD diameter more than 6 millimeters. These are the actual indications of MRCP. So to be practical, if you have a good setup means what? If I have a on-table intraoperative cholangiogram, if I have a facilities of on-table intra-op cholangiogram. What is intra-op cholangiogram is beyond the scope of this chapter, but I will tell you, I have never done this intra-op cholangiogram because I don't have this facility, but many institutes, they have an intra-op cholangiogram facility. Before cutting the cystic duct, during laparoscopic cholecystectomy, before cutting the cystic duct, they will cannulate the cystic duct with a small cannula and push the contrast and see for any leak from the CBD or any stone in the CBD. They will see during surgery itself, they will see for any leak or any stone in the CBD. This is known as intra-op cholangiogram. If you have this facility, you can proceed without even MRCP. But the point is, there is a straightforward line in Bloomgart. The role of intra-op cholangiogram has come down nowadays, has decreased because of MRCP being there in the hand before surgery, because of MRCP. So MRCP is a non-invasive investigation. It is a simple investigation unless the patient is not having any claustrophobia or MRI contraindications. If you do MRCP, there is no role of intra-op cholangiogram unless you suspect any bile duct injury during surgery. So intra-op cholangiogram, I have not done. We have done more than hundreds of cholecystectomy in the past 5 years, but I have never done a intra-op cholangiogram. But 90% of the patients, I ask them to come with MRCP report. Only with the MRCP report, I will proceed with the surgery. So this is very important. On-table intra-op cholangiogram. Please don't forget, it is getting slowly decreased because of the MRCP pictures. Okay, this is very important thing. You should not forget. So now, the Merici syndrome, please don't forget, these are some other complications we will be facing during surgery. So this is another complication. Sometimes what happens, the stone from the gallbladder will enter the duodenum because of a fistula. Can you see this is stone? Directly from the gallbladder, it has entered into the duodenum. That is known as Boveret syndrome. So this is due to cholecysto. It is not entering through bile duct. It is from gallbladder to duodenum. Cholecystoduodenal fistula. This cholecystoduodenal fistula has formed a fistula here, and the stone has come into the duodenum and causing obstruction. But mostly it will not cause obstruction in the duodenum. It will come out and it will cause obstruction in the bowel, in the terminal ileum. That is known as gallstone ileus. This is a PG topic. PG aspirants question. This is a PG aspirants question. So gallstone ileus is nothing but due to cholecystoduodenal fistula. The stone enters the duodenum and comes down and obstructs the terminal ileum that is characterized by a regular striate. Regular striate characterized by fistula, pneumobilia, presence of air in the biliary system, pneumobilia, and number 3, obstruction of the bowel. So this is known as a regular striate, a feature of gallstone ileus. So when we encounter these type of cases like a cholecystoduodenal fistula, never hesitate to open. We will always convert it into open surgery. So the only concern we will be getting apart from the bile duct injury is concern for open cholecystectomy. Surgeons should never think conversion of open as a impotence. You should not think it is an impotence. It is masculine. I will tell you, it is a masculine decision. So from conversion from laparoscopic to open, many surgeons, I still see many surgeons I'm seeing, no, they always have a hesitation to convert a laparoscopic to open. They think if I convert laparoscopic to open, the patients will think bad, the anesthetist will think bad. Whoever thinks bad, why should you worry about it? Because it's the life of the patient. You should not take risk. No, never do damage to the patient, even if you're not going to do good for the patient. So if there is a problem during surgery, never hesitate to convert laparoscope to open. I'm telling you, so far I have done 100 cases, I have more than 100 cases, but I have converted more than 10% is my open rate. I will always be never hesitant to do open. If I do open, I will be very much clear with anatomy and I will be ready to tackle any injury, bile duct injury or any stone impacted stone, anything I can manage if I convert it to open. So converting to open is not an importance. It is the most manly decision taken by the surgeons. Please remember this. So never ever think that I will always do with laparoscopy only. There are so many surgeons who got into trouble only with this ego. I will do it in laparoscopy only. I will never convert to open. If somebody is telling, I'm telling you, even to the patients are the same thing I'll tell. If somebody is telling I will do 100% with lap, I will never convert to open. Please don't go to them. You are in trouble. If somebody is telling if there is a problem, I will open. If there is necessary, I will do open and do the cholecystectomy. Means you go to that surgeon. He's definitely going to not cause damage for you. Is going to save your life. Okay, this is very important thing. So laparoscopy converted to open. There are many indications. That is important indication is Kellogg's triangle. Anatomy not clear. This is the most important thing. If the Kellogg's triangle anatomy is not clear, you should always never hesitate to go for open. You should never hesitate to go for open. And this type of laparoscope to open happens usually when we do surgery for acute cholecystitis. More happens when there is a chances of acute cholecystitis. It happens when there is a chance of acute cholecystitis. There is more chances of converting it to open, but nothing wrong. You can always do by a open cholecystectomy. If there is dense adhesion or a mass Kellogg's triangle not seen. So I told you intracholangiogram, the latest role is not there. Only when you suspect bile duct injury, you do a intracholangiogram. Otherwise, we are not doing intracholangiogram because we always have MRCP before going into the surgery. So now coming to the topic of complications of cholecystectomy. This is actually essential topic for PG aspirants. I'm going to tell you some scenarios which are always asked as a MCQ for your exams. This topic is purely for PG aspirants. Scenarios in laparoscopic cholecystectomy. All these are clinical based questions in AIIMS and other institute exams. So I'll tell you each and every scenario now one by one. So first scenario, how many ports you make? How many ports you are going to make? This is a very basic question. As final year students as well as PG aspirants, you should know this. How many ports should I make? So the first port I make is a camera port in the umbilical area. This is 10 mm port I will put in the umbilical area for doing the surgery. Put an umbilical port 10 mm. So the other ports are, 3 ports are made. One in the epigastric region, 5 mm port for right hand of me operating. For right hand operation, I will put a port at epigastric region. Mid clavicular line or near the gallbladder, you find out and you put a 5 mm port for my left hand operation. So I have to do 2 hands. I'm going to remove the gallbladder. So I have to put a 5 mm port at epigastric region, another 5 mm port in the mid clavicular line, and another 5 mm port is going to be used by the second assistant. The first assistant is going to be using the camera, is going to hold the camera. So the second assistant is going to stand on the right side of the patient, and he is the actual hero of this case. Who is the actual hero of the case? This case is not done by me, not done by the camera person. The entire surgery depends on this person, second assistant. He is the hero for this patient, for the surgery. Please remember, he is the hero. Why? Because he is the one who is going to show you the Kellard's triangle, opening the Kellard's triangle, everything by pushing the gallbladder fundus, holding the fundus. He is going to push it towards the right axilla. If you have a poor second assistant, your entire surgery will be collapsed and your anatomy of Kellard's will not be opening up and you will damage more structures. So please remember, I will always take a skilled assistant for this procedure. Second assistant is more important than a camera person. He has to stand like a statue, holding the gallbladder towards the right axilla. If he should not be too much forcing, at the same time, he should not be too much loose. He should be holding in a perfect way. He has to stand just like that for half an hour to 1 hour, even sometimes 2 hours. You have to hold this, and therefore he is the most important person in the surgery. Please remember. So that is the right axilla is for, sorry, the right lateral port is for retraction. Right lateral port for retraction. Please don't forget this point. So there are 4 ports, 2 operative ports. These 2 ports are held by me, surgeon, and this is a second assistant going to push the liver towards the right axilla, holding the fundus, and the first assistant is going to hold the camera. So this is how many ports? 4 ports are used. First question. Second question. So you are a general surgeon. You are a general surgeon, not having much orientation towards the liver resection. Question is very clear. General surgeon, you are operating. You are putting 4 ports. The first port I am putting now, as a general, if I am a general surgeon, I am putting the first port, 10 mm port I am putting. And on seeing the gallbladder, I am seeing there is an issue. The gallbladder looks like there is a growth there. Looks like a growth. Looks like a cancer. So the gallbladder is having some, at the level of fundus, there is something like a cancer. So this is the AIIMS question. As a general surgeon, you are putting a 10 mm camera port at the fundus of the gallbladder. You are seeing a cancer-like thing. What will you do? I will give you the choices. You just answer it. So because usually you can answer it without choices. When you see the choice, you will get confused. So take biopsy. Choice number A, take biopsy. Do laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Do laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Abandon the procedure and refer to GI surgeon or hepatobiliary surgeon. For there will be something else. So which is the correct answer here? So as a general surgeon who is less experienced with the liver surgeries, abandon the procedure and refer to GI surgeon is the correct answer for this question. Abandon the procedure, take the port out and just safely refer the patient to a hepatobiliary surgeon who can do a liver resection for a gallbladder surgery. So, and before you refer the patient to GI surgeon, he will take care of the patient further. He will evaluate for the cancer, everything. Because many times why this problem happens is, we will be having some local scan center nearby. There will be some new radiologists. They may be giving ultrasound shows multiple gallstones. This will be the report. So you'll be thinking multiple gallstone, there is nothing much to worry. Therefore, you will be going for a laparoscopic cholecystectomy. And as you put the port, then only you see there is a cancer which the radiologist would have missed. This commonly happens. As you put the port, there will be a cancer the radiologist would have missed. So I'll show you one such case. I got from one of my friend from Kalakuruchi. He operated one case. While operating, what happened is, he thought it is a, it's like a, what do you say? He thought it is a gallstone disease and he opened it. But finally, what happened is, it turned out to be a malignancy. Therefore, what he did is he immediately removed the ports and he referred the patient to me. I'll show you that patient. Actually, that's an interesting thing. You should never try to proceed further. As a general surgeons, they should be never try to proceed the patient. So you can see this case. This is a case of a gallbladder. As you can see the ports. This is a port, 2 ports he has made. One port umbilical and another port, just touch and see. So he put 2 ports. At that time, he noted there is a cancer in this place. So he abandoned the procedure. So the patient was referred after 2-3 days to our hospital. We opened the patient and we did an extended cholecystectomy, including part of liver. This is a extended cholecystectomy also done, and inside there was a early cancer. So this is what we must do for a patient suspected to have cancer. You should refer to a GI surgeon. So number 3, the same question. Number 3, the same scenario, but you are already a hepatobiliary pancreatic surgeon experienced with a liver resection. Experienced with liver resection, you are already a hepatobiliary pancreatic surgeon who can do a liver resection. What will you do? So as a hepatobiliary surgeon, I will first step what I will do, next step what I will do. I will not abandon the procedure. I will convert from laparoscopic to open. Please remember, convert laparoscopic to open technique. So this is what the next step. This is also an MCQ. So I'm telling you, these are MCQs which are asked in the exam. So if there is a malignancy, if you're a hepatobiliary experienced surgeon, convert laparoscopic to open then and there itself. If you have some gastrointestinal surgeons available nearby, you can call the surgeons for a open procedure. We can go for a on table. We can go for a radical cholecystectomy can be done. Radical cholecystectomy can be done on the same sitting. This is another question, important question for the exam. So this is a clinical scenario 3. Okay. So clinical scenario question number 4. So all these questions are asked in AIIMS and other institute exams. You should never have a doubt at all. So next question I'm going to tell you, we have done a surgery for a laparoscopic cholecystectomy successfully for the patient. Now the patient on second post-op day is coming to you with the complaints of pain in the right hypochondrium. He is having fever. Pulse rate is high. Pulse rate is high. So it's on a second post-op day or a third post-op day or a first post-op day. Also patient is having pain, fever, at the pain at the right hypochondrium, fever. What should I do next? What should I do next? This is a question. What will you do next? So this is a 100 times asked repeat MCQ for your exams, and you must immediately send the patient for an ultrasound to look for bilioma. This is the next step you must do. So ultrasound is done next for the patient. You should look for ultrasound to look for a bilioma. Please don't forget, I will immediately do an ultrasound to look for a bilioma. This problem we never face in many practice because we always keep a drain after laparoscopic cholecystectomy because we don't have many intervention radiology facility in our place. So always we do a drain for 1 or 2 days. Especially if we had a tough cholecystectomy, we always keep a drain for 1 or 2 days. And if there is a leak, we will get the leak in this bag itself. I recently also posted one of the video of one of the patient who had a cholecystectomy followed by a leak. So we will get a leak in the bile duct. So this is what we do next. So next, what will you do if there is an injury is we have to do an ultrasound because in Western countries, they don't keep a drain. So you have to look for an ultrasound. That ultrasound shows a collection. What will you do next? This is the problem in our place. We don't have intervention radiologists many times to put a percutaneous drainage. You have to put a percutaneous drainage. If already there is a drain, no need to worry. But if there is no drain, I have to put a pigtail catheter. The drain will be looking like this. I'll be putting a pigtail catheter into this place. I will be taking this and I will go and put this catheter in this area. So what happens? Automatically the bile will come out through the drain. That will come out through the drain and the patient will have decreasing pain, decreasing fever and pulse rate because this is purely due to biliary peritonitis. This is a case of biliary peritonitis. The patient was having so much of symptoms. So biliary peritonitis, that is the reason for this. We have to put a drain and we have to wait. So what will you do then? Percutaneous drainage is done. So this is a protocol. After doing a percutaneous drainage, what will you do? So I will wait for 2 weeks. I will wait for 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, 90% of the leaks will settle. 90% of the leaks will settle. The leak stops. 90% of the leak stops in 2 weeks. So if the leak is not stopping at 2 weeks, if it stops, no need to worry. You can go for MRCP at 8 weeks. You can do a MRCP at 8 weeks. If leak is not stopping, leak not stops. What should I do? If leak not stops, then I should do a gold standard investigation for bile duct injury. This is again a NEET PG question. Gold standard investigation. Gold standard investigation for bile duct injury is ERCP. Please don't forget the gold standard injury is ERCP. In ERCP, I will have a classification very commonly asked MCQ. These are all full of PG related topics. Strasbourg classification. ERCP shows a classification known as Strasbourg classification. When will you do ERCP? Only after 2 weeks. We don't do it immediately. At 2 weeks, we'll do a ERCP that will show you a classification known as Strasberg classification. The most common cause of bile duct injury is this. Cystic duct, I have put a clip. No, this clip will fall down and the bile will leak. This is the most common injury, cystic duct blowout. This is known as cystic duct blowout. That is type A Strasberg. Type A Strasberg is leak from the cystic duct, and cystic duct blowout has happened. Nothing to worry, it will resolve by itself. It resolves usually by itself. It will usually resolve in 2 weeks or 4 weeks, nothing to worry about it. So type B injury is, type B and C are injuries of aberrant duct. I showed you the images of anomalies. No, in this anomaly, you see, this is a anomalous duct. This is cystic duct is normal. See the picture of B and C has a anomalous duct. This is known as aberrant right posterior sectoral duct. I told you, the posterior sectoral duct can get injured. That complication is this. Aberrant right posterior sectoral duct is being clipped is known as B. Clipped. It is not leaking. Therefore, there is no leak in B. It is cut is known as C. C for cut. Therefore, there is a leak. So aberrant right posterior duct is cut and that is leaking is C. D is a lateral bile duct injury. This is an injury. D is lateral bile duct injury. E is very worst injury. There is no excuse if we do this type of injury because they have cut the CBD completely. CBD circumferential injury. This is what I told you. Sometimes what happens when you pull it, CBD appears like a cystic duct and we put a clip for the CBD. This is what happens. So this is type E, circumferential injury. This is Strasberg classification of ERCP. Please don't forget this classification is very important for PG entrance exams. PGMA exam, this is most important classification. In this classification, the question is which one have no leak is B has no leak. A has leak, C has leak, D has leak, E has leak. All A, C, D, E patients presents as bilioma. So we don't know what leak it is until you do an ERCP. Initially, there is a bile collection, we have put a drain. But how to know where is the injury? We have to do ERCP after 2 weeks. And ERCP is done now. We have found out the leak. What will I do now? Even now, I won't do anything. I will, if at all, I may do a ERCP, sphincterotomy and stenting for few cases. ERCP, sphincterotomy and stenting can be done. For which cases? For A injury, I will do like that. It is useful. If I do for A, it is useful. If I do it for D, it is useful. You can see, I can do a ERCP and sphincterotomy and I can put a stent like this. Plastic stent inside the bile duct. This is A, it is useful. What is the use of I am putting for a C? No use. In C, there is no use. Anyhow, it is going to leak only. Anyhow, it is going to leak only. So no use for C. But for D, I can put a thing like this so that it will form a channel to drain the bile like this. So D, it is useful. So E, you cannot put a ERCP stent at all because it is cut. I cannot pass the stent into this place. It is impossible. So A and D, ERCP, sphincterotomy and stenting can be done. Usually the medical gastroenterologist, they do this. Medical gastroenterologist, when they do ERCP, they find out what type of injury. If it is A and D, they will put the stent immediately. They will put the stent during the procedure itself. So E, they will tell, sir, that I cannot pass the stent. It is very full cut injury. We cannot do anything. Like that they will tell. So anything after 8 weeks, after this 8 weeks, what happens? We have to wait. The leak will be coming, and slowly after 8 weeks, it will stop. How does it stop? Does it heal the injury? No. The injuries all heal with the formation of strictures. Now the real problem starts. So the patient, that is why I am telling laparoscopic cholecystectomy, be careful, be careful. Why we are telling again and again? Because the injuries are very, very worst nightmare for the surgeons. I have seen surgeons who could not sleep for months together because the patients will be coming to you every day, every week. They will be coming to you with the various complaints. They will develop cholangitis. They will have bile leak. Continuously, there will be a nightmare for the surgeon. So please remember, at 8 weeks, they will develop a stricture, and that they will not only come with stricture, they will come to you with a clinical feature of obstructive jaundice. Now it is a time to know where is the stricture, what is the problem, etc. We have to go for a MRCP. Investigation of choice for stricture is MRCP. It will be done only after 8 weeks. It will be done only after 8 weeks. In MRCP, there is a classification of strictures. I hope you know that. I'm not going into that. That is Bismuth classification of strictures. So that will tell you where is the stricture, what type of stricture, everything is there. That is beyond the scope of this chapter. But bismuth classification, I'll tell you, if the stricture is more than 2 centimeter from the hilum, it is type 1. If the stricture is more than 2 centimeter from the hilum, it is like this now. For example, there are many classifications like this. Bismuth goes on up to 5. So bismuth type 1, there is a stricture like this at more than 2 centimeter. So what am I going to do now? Now you must be very careful. The person who is going to touch this patient now has to take full responsibility and serious thing. And the hepatobiliary surgeon will be called now. He will be going and dissecting the bile duct, and he will be bringing a jejunum and anastomosing with the bile duct like this. It is known as hepaticojejunostomy, because we have to open the bile duct above the stricture and we have to do hepaticojejunostomy. This is the problem. We should have to go for a major surgery now. We have to open the abdomen, we have to bring a jejunum, and we have to anastomose with the bile duct stricture. So this is hepaticojejunostomy has to be done. I have seen a few patients who developed a stricture like this, They didn't come for hospital. They had obstructive jaundice for months together, like 6 months, 1 year also. The surgeon has not properly referred the patient, and the patient developed a secondary biliary cirrhosis. Just 35 years woman, 35 years lady. She has not been properly evaluated for the stricture. She had jaundice and she came to the hospital with a secondary biliary cirrhosis. When I'm doing MCH during my postgraduate day, the patient came with a secondary biliary cirrhosis, and the only treatment of choice for this case is what? Liver transplant. Please remember, a gallbladder surgery patient who came for a simple gallbladder operation, removal of gallstone, 6 mm, 7 mm stone. The patient has come for operation, and the patient has landed up in bile duct injury, stricture, finally with a biliary cirrhosis, and finally went for liver transplant. So therefore, the gross mistake here is not injuring the bile duct. Yes, bile duct injury is possible. 0.5 to 1% chances are there in a laparoscopic cholecystectomy. That cannot be. We cannot stop doing surgeries because of the problem of bile duct injury. But the mistake from the surgeon side is you should recognize it early, identify the injury, refer the patient to the correct surgeon, and repair the injury. That is the most important thing. There is no excuse if we leave the patient to go for a secondary biliary cirrhosis and patient finally landing up in a liver transplant, especially a 35 years lady. That lady landed up in a liver transplant. We saw one such patient and I'm doing MCH. That's a very worst treatment of the surgeon. So this and all should never happen. So you should identify if you're doing a laparoscopic cholecystectomy, you should know everything about laparoscopic cholecystectomy. You should know A to Z, what complication can happen, what to do if there is a complication, whom to call, what to do if there is a complication, how to solve the complication. Everything you should know before doing a laparoscopic cholecystectomy, because you are dealing with the life of the patient. The patient will be lifelong handicapped. So the last scenario I'm going to discuss in the last discussion is on table. On table, a surgeon is doing a laparoscopic cholecystectomy. On table, the surgeon is doing a laparoscopic cholecystectomy. He found out there is a duct injured and bile is coming out. There is a duct injured and bile is coming out like this. So we don't know what is the injury, because in laparoscopy, the bile starts coming out. We will not know the clear anatomy. If there is a bile starting to come out during the surgery on table, if the hepatobiliary surgeon is available, for example, they are calling me on table, I'm going on table to the theater. On table to the theater, what I will do is, for MCQ, please remember, if the size is less than 3 millimeter duct, some duct it is leaking. I found out where it is leaking. For there is some duct which is less than 3 millimeter. I can tie the duct, nothing to worry. Tie the duct. It will be some abnormal duct or a minor duct. Tie the duct and come out. Clip the duct and come out. If it is more than 3 millimeter duct, what should I do? Very interesting point. This is the point which as a postgraduate aspirant should know. If there is an injury of a duct more than 3 millimeter, means it can be a CBD also. There is an injury like this in the CBD like this. The surgeon, while doing laparoscopy, he has cut the CBD like this. If the circumference is less than 50%, circumference is injured. More than 3 millimeter duct, I'm going to open up and I'm doing the surgery. I'm going to what I'm going to do, I'm going to open the abdomen. More than 50% circumference is injured. At every point of this time, I'll tell you, you should never hesitate. If there is a bile leak, some bile is coming out during laparoscopic cholecystectomy, never hesitate to convert it to open. You should never hesitate to convert it to open. Immediately convert to open. And if the duct size is less than 3 millimeter, tie the duct. If it is more than 3 millimeter, and if the injury is less than 50% circumference, I can do the repair on a T-tube. I will keep a T tube. I will repair this. I will repair this keeping a T tube. Simple concept. This is as an MCQ, not only for MCQ, this is what given in Bloomgard also. So less than 3 millimeter duct, tie the duct. More than 3 millimeter duct, open the bile duct and keep a T tube for less than 50% circumference. This all can be done on table. Please understand the point, on table, not post-operative. If this happens after 24 hours, I will never open. If the surgeon has injured the bile duct and the drain is coming with the bile, patient comes to me after 24 hours. Within 24 hours, I can even redo. If the patient is operated and 6 hours to 12 hours, the patient is coming to me, I can even open and redo. But if the patient comes after 24 hours, all these things cannot be done. On table or yearly referral. Yearly referral to hepatobiliary unit, hepatobiliary pancreatic unit. If it is being done, yearly referral, there is no strict protocol, but it should be before 24 hours. This is what I will tell. So before 24 hours, if the patient reaches the hepatobiliary surgeon, we will open. And if it is a 3 millimeter duct, tie the duct. More than 3 millimeter duct, we have to put a T tube for less than 50% circumference, and more than 50% circumference, I should do a what? If it is more than 50% circumference like this, the injury is more than 50%, I should bring a rule limb of jejunum and anastomose like this. Hepatico-jejunostomy should be done using 40 Vicryl. Using 40 Vicryl, hepatico-jejunostomy has to be done, because if I try to repair more than 50% circumference, it will definitely develop a stricture. It will definitely develop a stricture. If less than 50% circumference, I can keep a T tube now, and I will remove the T tube. That is a different protocol. That and all, I'm not going into CBD stones or CBD management, and all I'm not going. But if less than 50% circumference, please put a T tube and come out. Please put a T tube and come out. So this is very important thing you should not forget for your exam. So this is about the various concepts of laparoscopic cholecystectomy. So related to CBD stones, I'm not discussing in this chapter because this module is not related to CBD. So in future, we'll have some other session for a CBD stone discussion. Now let us come for a very